Great to
Well,
connect with you.
it's good to see you.
It's
All
good
right.
to see you as well. It's great to see you as well.
Oh, this is wonderful. What a pleasant surprise, and thanks for reaching out. And tell me, how are you today?
I'm very well, Angela, and it's a pleasure to connect with you. I was just reading some of the posts that you have on LinkedIn, and I can see quite beautiful, very beautiful.
There's
There's
all
some,
these notes
yeah,
and all that. Yeah,
I get that.
yeah. If you want the notes, and it's a habit. If you want me to turn it off, I would turn it off.
I'm fine either ways.
All the
I'll
way.
let you pick.
What a journey you've
Yeah.
got.
Hmm.
So I was read. I don't know why, but I associate you with radical acceptance and forgiveness. And I want to hear your story. Yeah.
Tell
How
me.
did it begin? How did it
Oh,
begin?
you want to know about it? Okay, okay.
How did it
Um,
begin?
Yeah, well, I've always been in my parents brought me up in a very devout and spiritually alert family. My father was a seeker. He spent a lot of time with inquiry on various different schools of religions in India. A very strong character, very strong integrity,
Mhm.
physically very strong as well, and a very sensitive human being, really very disciplined and sensitive. I was born after 10 years of my brother's birth, so I was the youngest in the family. I was brought up by the time my father found his answer.
Oh,
So yeah, he found his home in spirituality in India, in a master whose message resonated best with him.
mm,
And that is how I was brought up in a home which was the character that I described of my father, extremely strong in integrity, and he would push away ideas of spirituality unless they resonated every cell in his being, which was that everything ought to make sense. And
yes.
and finally, he had total conviction, and he died very fulfilled, extremely centered in the answer. Sorry, we lost each other for a few moments.
How old was he when he passed, and how old were you
90.
then?
He was 91, and this was only 3 years back or so. I was around 50, so it was a ripe old age, but
Yes,
extremely centered in his being, and having passed through his ups and downs,
yes,
he was at his elevated best. In
yes,
fact, in fact, we were visiting some relatives.
yes,
We had a beautiful morning. He dressed himself up very nicely, and there somebody asked him, "How are you, sir?" The elderly gentleman who was sitting opposite to me. He was sitting next to me. My father was sitting next to me, and his answer was, "I'm very well, very happy, very peaceful. Now I have only one desire, that I should pass away without troubling the children too much. So when we leave, it shouldn't trouble children." And that was the last sentence he spoke.
Sounds like my mother, who she was widowed in her early 30s, and all her life it's always about travel lightly and having the least inconvenience on people,
Hmm.
loved ones, taking care of affairs. So in 2023, when she realized that she has some heart trouble, and I'll just want to be, as you're transparent, I am transparent. That's how I am, that kind of
Hmm.
person,
I, I,
you
yeah.
know. And I remember how she thought she might not make it. And so I remember, that time when I was in Singapore, deliberately thinking I need to extend an extra week. And I'm so glad I did. But last year when I visited, I didn't. And I just, just pop in and out. I remember that moment where she thought she's not gonna make it. Um, just that being, just the way how they see life. And it's so wonderful to be in that presence of a person who is going for what, like, this is what matter, and this is what I'm going to pass on, and this is what I'm going to say. And I can see why you are coming strong and loud into the world now. That's wonderful, Amit. That's wonderful.
And so the same about you,
Yeah,
exactly the same about you. It's so resonant. I mean, and I mean,
if
with
we
the
could, yeah, we could be silent, right?
yes, absolutely. There's nothing much to be said at all. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It is
Yeah.
so moving, really moving. How old was this conversation when she spoke about her heart and her health? How were you, and how old was she?
How old was she, or how, say that
Both,
again?
both. How old were you, and how old was she?
Was in the 70s, so I'm thinking of like, and I was in my 50s. My mom, one thing that you said you were in the 50s and your dad in the 90s, and the word from Hugo came to mind, that you are the at the beginning, you're at the youth of your old age.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. Yep. Yes.
Think about old age. We don't have the capacity like what we used to, because we get
Yeah.
emotionally, mentally, and physically exhausted if we would do life the way we used to do in our 20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yet, so our body, if we listen to our body, it's such a gift, it's such a temple. It helps us remember that we can't go at the speed that the Gen Z, the millennials,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Ron and I, we have two kids. So kids are 20 and 22. So, it's a window into that world, that how
Yeah. Yeah.
the world operates. Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
married? Okay.
We are. I am, and the reason I'm here in the US is because my wife's working now. In the first half of my career, I was the one who was taking the family around, getting transferred places. Now I'm following my wife, and she has brought us here. We've got two children. They're all grown up. My son's 28, now 27, and my daughter is 22.
Are they all in the US, or are they?
No, no, no. My daughter's in the Netherlands, and my son's in India. My daughter is doing her PG, and my son is now working.
Okay, awesome. So it's all over the world. So you are, I know why everyone go into coaching. And for you, have you found your niche, or what's going on?
So it's such an interesting question, and I've done everything in the book to uh, to to understand what traditionally people do to discover their niche. But for me, it was more about finding me, and not responding to the market, and coming more and more straight from my center and offering exactly what's arising here. That's been my calling.
Mhm.
So instead of adopting to where or adjusting to where more market might be, or where people might be more interested to pay or look for me, the my answer came in form of come straight for whatever are you about? What are you up to here?
Mhm.
So in that came my answer to what my niche is. When we moved to US last year, October, so we've been here now 1.5 years or so. So 2 years this October. Uh, 2 years. It'll be 2 years in this October. So we've done 1.5.
You lived in other parts of the US before?
We never lived in the US before. We were we were in Paris. Would love to. So that's what brought you to US, or now you are in the States, isn't it?
I came here because I wanted to. I married him. We met many years ago, so we've been married for a long time.
Hmm.
It's, Um, and I came here. It was actually, I mean, it was supposed to be just 5 years, because both our families did not quite approve of our marriage.
I get it. I get that.
Oh,
Mm,
I didn't know if that was that, because in America, if you have found,
mm,
the conversation of race is very intense, device
mm,
from.
mm,
Coming
mm,
from Singapore is not that way. So
mm.
when I came here, I was very always been puzzled why race divide so many people.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the Christian community, there is the black church and then the white church and
Yeah.
white church and then there's the rock out church. It was very puzzling. And even though my Christian faith has the cross has given me great comfort, it was
Mm,
very puzzling to be among the people and to learn.
mm.
So to meet someone like you, it's such a pleasure and delight because we sort of know that we completely understand. We sort of know that what is being offered by institutional religion is not enough. There is so much more.
Yeah, well, we've got to go straight for the heart, isn't it? I mean, uh, the institution sometimes misses the essence, which which it which is at its own core, perhaps.
I love that you are here and I love that you are relatively new. It's because a lot of podcast hosts would jump at wanting to interview you. So get your name out there.
Uh,
you know, aren't you
and,
are you being hounded by a lot of LinkedIn people saying that I get that a lot. So that's why
that's
I
beautiful.
that's why I get I really try not to look at a lot of them. I just kind of put my message out and I leave.
Yeah, I get that.
Where I protect my space and not try. But I know one of the cost of it is not, they say it's engagement. You got to be more engaged. So I'm
Yeah,
learning more engaged, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I respect that. I respect that. I am being hounded. Marketing, the people who offer a lot of marketing, and I did experiment with some of that. When so to answer that question on the niche as well, this connects there as well. When I was in Paris, because the language was such a barrier, I didn't speak French, and my majority of my clients were English-speaking people from all over. Um, so when we were getting ready to move to US, I thought it's a very well-developed market. I'll have more work. I would love to and one of the things when I let go of my corporate career, even though I was moving closer to my purpose and I felt I was doing really the work that I wanted to do always. And I felt much closer to my heart now. But this feeling was always there that I'm not earning enough, you know. It's not about
Not doing enough or not earning enough. Which
not
one?
earning enough. I never needed to do. I love my leisure, so I wouldn't mind not having too much to do, but not earning enough. And uh, sometimes, occasionally, there's a feeling that one could do more as well, more contact, more. But more about earning. That was the invalidation. That is what was calling for healing. It is not the truth of the matter, but it was about. So during the period when I wasn't earning enough, I was up to a lot. There was a lot of work happening here. It's not that there wasn't work happening. Transformation, conviction, clarity, and personal growth. There was a lot of work in that area going on, but it didn't translate too much into financial um, intensity. If and I don't mean it in a very good way. I meant like I didn't actually need that much money as much as I needed it to satisfy perhaps my image and who I was in the corporate space. And now I needed to, okay, how do I introduce myself, that kind of thing. So when I thought we are moving to US, I'll get into marketing properly. I will really do my job properly and more properly, let's say, announce myself and get more clients. But when I sat here ready to redefine my website or redo my website about who I am, what do I do, and all that, and before I would uh, hire some marketing agents to begin some marketing work for me, I just didn't find in me the will to write. Uh, it took a lot of contemplation to clarify the essence of who I am and what I'm offering. And I found that I wasn't ready here. It's not about what I could have really redefined, said that this is what I offer, this is what the market needs. That is not who I was. So the work that I offer is spiritual, is about coming to your own essence, and my clients find value. So it may not be. So say that, say more. You were saying something. I interrupted you. Yeah.
Well, I want to hear because you said something that I want to revisit so that my mind. You said something about purpose.
Mm.
I mean, what is your purpose now?
Self, capital S, being realizing the essence of who I am and living as truth of who I am. And in our literature, or it guides us towards the potentiality of being divine. The highest is the highest version of who I am, who we are, is oneness with God. So the more we permit ourselves to descend towards our center, our heart, and more congruent, more aligned we are to ourselves, the more energy we draw um, from the center, from the source. And it forever, it's like gravity. We are pulled towards it. It's not that we have to, it's just yielding to it. So and the closer you are, the greater conviction the more resonance we find in our clients. The more I've had very little trouble in that area. It may be another matter that I'm no longer keen to do. I'm not pushing myself out there too much. I know that there is time and it'll grow. It'll come in its time. My point is, and I don't need to uh, go out there in order to anything at all anymore. It's not about making money. It's not about getting acknowledgement, and that doesn't get me any validity. It does gives me no satisfaction anymore.
So I'm curious, has this always been like this for
No,
you? When you were 19, 29, 39, tell me
no.
the
The
narrative
so
of yours.
yeah, wow. I mean, I never thought about it like this, but spiritual growth, has been really, really important all my life. As a matter of fact, if I neglected it for a few years out of a passion for career, family, falling in love, etc., whatever was going on, in those areas, I would still be pulled very strongly by my heart in that direction, and I would never let go of that. So, that passion forever stayed alive, and that brought me to my guru, my master. It all my father's guru, and that's where I found all my answers as well. I mean, no confusion with regards to the message. What is my work? So direct resonance, in terms of, I'm quite clear about, uh, after a lot of resistance, it's gone home, the idea is clear. And it's not so much about finding it in text as much as it is about the guidance of finding it within. That learn to pay attention. That's been the how do you find your guide within here. How do you begin to be more and more clear? What is the reward the more you answer to your own calling, your own center? And now that pull is very perceptible, very strong, very clear, and uh, and and rewarding.
So I have a television background, and
Hmm,
so I ask questions sometimes to get even clearer
hmm,
um, who I'm interviewing. And so the question that I kept coming up for me was when you said, "No, I'm not always that way," even though spiritual matters is an it's something that it's something that I value. I mean, I
hmm,
pay
hmm,
attention a lot to it, but it's something it matters to me as I live out all my different roles. So, can you help me understand a little bit more? Like, give me a few examples in your life that you would like to, if you could tell, we're willing to share. Like, what happened
hmm, hmm.
to make you say, no, enough? I need to pay attention to my spiritual self with an S.
I was always curious about it. It's difficult to grasp. It was a challenge. I didn't understand it. So I was reading some of the literature all along in my life, and to understand what is the point, what is the spiritual thing all about, what is the reward of it? Why are we why is so much importance about spirituality? What does it make available for us? So lots of literature reading, lots of um, devotion as well. Like, so because when I was with the master as if holds space for you to offer you a lot of different things that you need, um, as if the entire school is getting it, but it appears to be very customized to your needs, to my needs. It felt like as if I'm held. My education, my training is my master's responsibility, and it's as if everything right is falling in place when I needed it most, including the challenges and difficulties. You know.
Was there something in your journey of life that make you like, for example, and as an engineer before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there something missing when you were living out your life as an engineer?
Mm-hmm.
Or were
No,
you happy? Or was it
no,
just,
no, just the bigger prize.
oh,
Just that. So as if the spirituality offered the ultimate gift. It's, it's this is not good enough kind of thing. It's to tell you the materials side of the story. I started off as an introvert, really an introvert, very difficult for me to stand in front of crowds and make a presentation, etc., etc. But I found myself in marketing and sales, so I had to do a lot of that work. But since I found it challenging, I started putting a lot of effort into it. But sometimes when you're not good at something, you're putting so much effort, you start getting better at it than people who are naturally good at it. That's what happened in my case. I started growing very rapidly in 10, 15 years times. I was leading large teams. I think by the time I had done 15 years, I was already national head for sales and business development side and making good money. Um, and make callers up. I'm doing great stuff, and but somewhere around when I was 23, 24, you also start taking some career risks, joining startups and these kinds of things. I joined a company, and after 5 years of putting a lot of effort to make it profitable, that I felt I was doing something very, very important. I was establishing the culture that is of excellence and goodness, and spirituality as a thread was always present. So, friends, working among friends, and hiring the first 1,000 people. As soon as the company hit profits, I was promptly fired. So now that for a person who had grown very rapidly and had a very high opinion of himself. And I was getting all kinds of offers, so I was picked up by the next position immediately, and for a very high salary. But far higher than the startup was willing to pay. So I bought the BMW and all of those things that one does to regain my status emotionally and egoically. But this had pulled the proverbial rug from under my feet. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Who did I prove to that I am good at this? And that sent me running to my master at my altar. It was not in-person conversations ever, um, where I was now praying for purpose. There has to be something meaningful about what I'm doing with my vocation. It cannot be that I'm just trying to make money, spend it, get accolades, or get acknowledgement, and do that over and over again. I can't be doing that again and again. In fact, I would be driving in this big car to this easy job. The next job was very easy because it was a bigger corporation, a German company which only expected predictable results and very high salary in comparison to what I was drawing earlier. Yet I would be in tears every single day, praying that there has to be some purpose. And please give me some purpose. You know, the life cannot be about earning. So the way I showed up for that work was very different. in comparison to how I was showing up earlier. I was already, my priorities had shifted. I was contemplating spiritually, etc. Ultimately, in 3 years or 4 years' time of this taking up this position, I started a lot of work on personal mastery, self development, coaching. I started training myself for that. And in 2016, 17, I let go of that career ultimately. And I found myself struggling in career that what am I doing here? Trying to tell to my father-in-law what do I do was a big challenge because he wouldn't understand that why did you let you go? And it was a big invalidation to the ego.
Yes.
But it was a journey of discovery, owning my work more fully, and self-healing. Letting go of the inauthentic self that I was causing myself, and 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 committing to my clients rising into their own essence and discovering the pleasure of it. It took some time, but ultimately it showed up, and more and more and more and more. And now I earn a fraction of what I did at that time, of course, but very happy to be where I am, including as much as I pay, because I don't think that having too much would do much for me, because I would buy probably a bigger of what I had, and we all our needs are answered because my wife makes good money, sufficient money for both of us, I suppose.
Invalidation of the ego.
Yeah, yeah.
Say more about how you come to.
So who am I? So when I'm introducing myself in the former universe, I would give my visiting card, and people will say, "Okay, you work for this corporation, and you are a vice president of this, and this." All right, great. Do you know that guy? Do you know this guy? Yes, yes, very much. And talking from that, have you worked with? So you are drawing. I was drawing my validation or my identity from the visiting card that I was carrying, the money that I was making, or the people that who knew me. It was all drawing from outside. It wasn't from the self. It was coming from associations, accomplishments, achievements, ownership. You know what I mean?
Yes, really.
Less and less reliance on the subtle, which is difficult to define, but ultimately one can go and stand on that if one is more very clear.
I find that very courageous.
Mm.
Do you think of it as a courageous act on your part to let it all go?
There was no courage. It happened because I couldn't breathe in the previous universe anymore. I felt that, that's what happens in the spiritual path. I feel now that when you've been praying hard, and I've read some of your posts on prayer, when you've been calling to your master to pray, there has to be something else and something else. Then you begin to transform and you become a misfit in the previous context. So now you don't belong there. So now it's courage to. So that's what my boss said after 6 months of my leaving. He said, "Now you've tried it. I can see the struggle. Why don't you come back now? So you come back and work for us again. You've done it. Now you've done it. Great work, great effort. Now you come back and join us." I told him, I would love to come back, but you offer me nothing except money. So, and then he realized that I'm not coming back. He said, Amit, this takes a lot of courage to follow your own conviction. I told him, to know what you are doing day after day, to me, that is great courage. I didn't mean it in a good way, but I know that he was also following his spiritual path, etc. But to show up just for money and to not to be able to let go of that for your higher calling is where, in some form, that this is descending towards gravity. This is going towards yielding to ease. You know what I mean? That is so, but yet there is a mental courage involved. It's about courage of letting go. It's courage of giving up anxiety, giving up the false contexts, the need to talk in terms of what other people would understand. Like for example, when I was refining, when I wasn't clear about what I'm doing, what my niche is or what my coaching is about, then I would be try looking at other people. Do they get it? I'm telling them what do I do? Do they see it? Do they respect it? I do some work with this and I do some work with that. Do they appreciate it? But as I have become more and more clear, I think what they are trying to read is whether I am clear or not. They are not trying to read whether they like it or not. And it doesn't matter whether they like it or not. If I am clear, then that is what I need to communicate. So I went with the went to a retreat recently where um, the coach I was training with, um, transformational coach, he put out a question: what is your work in the world? What is your work? So to the circle, and can you describe it in one word? So some people spoke about leadership, some people spoke about transformation, some people said being and love, and I got up and I said, and I sat down. So that's my work. That's what I offer. Just, relief. And it doesn't have to be verbal. I didn't bother describing myself and they got it. You know what I mean? And I love what you said. We can be silent here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just said that. And I was complete others not getting it. And yet I knew that their soul gets it. Some part of them do get it, even though their mind resists it yet. There's a part of it. And it's all right.
How would you like to live the remaining days of your life?
I guess the power is rising, it's not diminishing. So the closer one gets to one's essence, there is more and more conviction to make a difference, more and more clarity about how one can make people powerful and find their own heart and heal. So there's opportunity to work one-on-one with people. I do that, a lot of work. There are occasionally some times when I show up for workshops and talk more about it. But I also now I honor my introversion. Earlier, I would push myself to stand in front of crowds and talk, and now I know that I'm introverted, and I do not mind that in a fashion in which it is. I don't. It's okay. But when I'm standing in the crowd and I'm speaking, I forget my introversion as well. And then I'm not introverted anymore. Just like right now, I'm not. Perhaps I can be fairly open about my vulnerability and what I've gone through.
Yeah. Have you, this so far with all this share, have you ever shared speaks like that on your YouTube or out there? Have you?
I haven't, but this might be an interesting conversation to post. I do share, I do record these conversations that we have with some of our, friends or just like this kind of connection.
Yes,
And I don't mind sharing that out there. It's good for,
beautiful.
and the idea for me to do that is to put myself out there and to let go of fear and anxiety of being fully seen, because that's been a barrier for me to overcome. You know what I mean?
Your story is something, is one that I resonate. I could feel myself going on an emotional roller coaster with you as you share, you know, the ego powerful self of you.
Yeah, yeah,
Name it. And it
yeah,
was clean, in a clean way.
yeah,
And because so many of us, so it's like, it's true.
yeah,
Name the elephant in the room.
yeah.
And then, and one thing that I'm curious about is in how do you, because you come from such a rich tradition of deep wisdom, from the coaching point of view, or the community that, this profession, how do you stop yourself not being a guru? Because there's a tendency. And then
Yeah,
stroke your ego, Amit.
yeah. No, I get where you're coming from, and it's a beautiful question as well. Um, Before every session, I put my head down to the feet of my master in all humility, uh, and I again fill myself with realization that I offer nothing. I have got nothing to offer. I know nothing about the world of the other person. The knowledge that I have is worth nothing to the other person. It's of no use, and it's only when the source is talking to the source when anything beautiful would come true, would happen. So it's only when I'm when I get out of the way,
Yeah.
you know. So one is tempted to talk from what one knows, but it's yeah, I think being present to the divinity in the other person, which actually makes any breakthroughs possible. And so it's not that I always am successful in generating breakthroughs. I am brought again and again to a realization that okay, so now you were the one who's coaching. Notice where you are, and in the middle of the session, then I find myself running to my master to go at that. Oh, I realize that I've got nothing. You know what I mean? And then there is magic, and wonderful, unbelievable stuff happens then.
Speak more about this master of yours besides your dad. What do you have you learned from these is individuals? Because we have no access and we only know about them through you. So
Mm.
say about a couple of things about them that has left an indelible mark on you.
So, so the Indian spirituality or Indian essence of spirituality, uh, first of all, the master, my master, is Sri Satya Sai Baba. His name is Sri Satya Sai. He's the gentleman with big hair. I don't know if you've seen him.
Yeah.
And so I've never had a conversation one on one. How I have got to know him, how he has uh, given me value is through presence and through literature. So it's about uh, tons of learning, lots of learning, which is simple enough, and then of course a lot of practice, which is about um, which we did together. I went to learn at a university and taught at the university as well, to an MBA program on programs like self-development, value-centered leadership. I got an opportunity to teach there, but he ran a university. He set up a university in a village in India. And after I let go of my corporate career, I went there to teach for 4 years. That was the highest point of my career because um, it's difficult to get an opportunity like that, and that teaches you much more than what you can ever offer to the university. It offers pure transformation because
What,
you find
what, can you interrupt? What made it difficult and why was it the highest point?
because
Even
you let go of a lot of old context. So, for example, when you go and live in that village, uh, my my money, my earning dropped to maybe 5% of what I was earning earlier, and out of the 5%, I was unable to spend half of it because it was a village. There's nothing to spend it on, and so your context of life simplifies to the very essential level, and so your mind is available to focus on what really matters and what distracts you from it, you know. So, so, so I got to relate to those teachings much more with greater awareness. Got to follow the examples of others who were practicing. I got a chance to learn from the example of others, to be inspired by other people's example, and
sparring power, what was the difficult part? Because you
the
said a high point in your life, but it was also very difficult. What was difficult?
uh, it was away from the family. I was living alone, not very difficult. Um, you are learning to let go of what you call good work in favor of transformation as the only thing that matters. So let me say more about that. So instead of teaching very well and getting great, establishing the what our ego and the mental frameworks would say is great work, very well done. Instead of that, how did you show up? Did you make, I mean, were you, are you coming straight from your heart? Are you being more authentic or not? You begin to measure, when you are working on your spirituality, you are now in conversation in examining how true you are being to yourself. And are you being, how you begin to measure that more carefully than, um, okay, and which was the stuff which appeared to matter earlier and which now appears to be easier than all this. To let go of that and to come straight to this task is sometimes of a challenge. Your mind keeps going towards how to improve the university, how to improve the teaching. No, it's all about the spiritual work. When you work on this guy, then that improves automatically.
Yes. Sing, if you could have a guru word, or even though I said you should not be a guru, maybe you can give a quick few questions for people to think about, which is the part about we all know when we are off.
Hmm. Yeah.
You could be photographed, you could be driving a fancy car, living in a fancy house, you could have, a fabulous, the way you look looks fabulous. You can have all that. But we still know something in us is dying, right? So like you have the experience of like it doesn't work anymore. So
Hmm.
say to that person in that shoes.
Hmm. So the side of it which is passing is not our essence. What we are resisting to let go of is causing the problem, the misery, the suffering. What is rising in us is finally what will matter. And that is our powerful essence. The I, the pure I, not the ego story that I tell as myself, or my career story, or my knowledge story, or my awareness, my appearance as a body, etc., etc. The pure I that I am, that you and I are one in, that I, the when we let everything go, we will come and stand on that, on the power of that realization. And there is no denying it, one, and there is never depleting it. In fact, the more we own it, the more we rise. It's only when we are letting what doesn't matter slip away. It could be relationships, it could be health, it could be money. In fact, there's an incident that my guru had. He taught through conversations or through examples. So there were several of us, several people were sitting, um, and he was walking about. So a lady who was sitting there said, "Give give me your grace. Let me have your grace. Let me have grace." And he said, "You have my blessing." So she said back, and she said, "No, I want grace. Please give me grace." So he said, he turned around, "I've given you blessings. You will have blessings. Why do you want grace?" And she said, "No." And by this time, she was actually conscious of what other people are watching. Look, this debate is not a common debate. It's as if he's saying you can't. He would always say grace is always abundant, but here he was saying you can't have grace. You can't handle grace. So she said, "No, I need your grace, Swami," as she would call him. He said, "To have grace, you'll have to pass through 4 zeros. Are you ready for that?" She said, "So I'll do anything. I want your grace." So he said, "First, everything that you possess will come to mean nothing, or you will lose it all. Material wealth. It'll either not mean anything, or you will have none of it left with you. That's the first zero you'll pass through. Number two, then your relationships will come to mean nothing to you. They will either leave you or those relationships will matter less and less to you. They'll bring you no joy, no great satisfaction. And then number three, you will have all of this learnings that you say, wisdom, that you feel accounts for something, your accomplishments and your wisdom. It'll come to mean nothing. Or you will realize it has actually become nothing because, like in my life, getting fired came down to, okay, what am I accomplished here? You're brought to your knees and you're now wondering, what why was I doing this, what I'm doing? Who did I prove this to? They didn't see any value in my continuing in this job, which is, which is paying me nothing in comparison to what I could earn otherwise, yet there is no proving to anyone. So it meant nothing. So the third zero. And the fourth, he said, is your honor. Whatever you call you, it'll come to mean nothing. That means, your definition of yourself. And if you pass through that and you're still ready for grace, if you're still asking for grace, you will have my grace and all that comes along with it, which means that you could have everything, but you have to pass through zeros. That means you have to go to the level of the essence, right? You know, as you
Is
put
it
it.
is this something you read, or I got a little bit confused about that
So
part?
so his life is he taught like this through experiences, through conversations. So this happened as an incident with somebody else and somebody related. So you take away your message from it as your heart says makes sense to you.
So this guru, is it the same, the guy, the guru? So he recorded out, was it an
No,
oral,
no, somebody would say that this is what happened. We saw this happen.
I don't
So
know,
somebody
passed down to oral
and
tradition,
pass it on as a book in a book as an incident. And there is it's like, Buddha said. So this is what he said. Like,
in Southeast Asian history. I
hmm
When I was in college, they do. So the climate there in Southeast Asia does not allow you to keep a lot of evidence, the annals and all that. So a lot of things are passed down orally. So I get what you're saying now. Yeah,
yeah. He,
I
this is in written as well as in videos, etc., etc. So all some of these conversations you'll find people telling about it happened to me, it happened to my sister, it happened to the person who was sitting next to me, so I know. And you wisely take away what is of meaning to you. So you don't take away disempowering, you take away what is resonant with you, you
right.
know? And
Yes.
it's always empowering. It's always,
I got the second, third, and fourth. Could you say the first one again?
first one is about these kinds of things that we hold, material wealth,
Mhm.
what we hold of value, money.
Right.
I need to have this. This is who I am, my money. So your ego is what is peeling away little by little. I am my possessions. I am my associations. I am my accomplishment or my vocation. I am my story, or everything is going. And then you are beginning to come down to, okay, then who am I? What is the ground that I stand on and I call I? And that is when you're actually discovering the self. For the first time, you're discovering the real essence of who you are is glorious. This was all spurious. This was not, this didn't matter. None of this is permanent.
The
But who
first
you?
the first one is really very hard to pass through for a lot of people.
Yeah. In US particularly, of course.
Yes. Yes, because second, third, and fourth, I totally get it.
Mm,
From the Buddhist Zen tradition that I
mm,
have. It's like easy to have them, and then the things that you value most, and then not value so, and realize that they don't matter so much, not because you don't love it anymore, but you don't hold on to it. It was something like a cup of tea. You enjoy
yeah.
it, and you're
And
like,
then, and
like,
that then it's all right. That's the kind of letting go we're talking about. I also believe that the real letting go is not about giving it away to somebody. Ultimately, it is about owning it in a fashion which it's not yours, and you
yes.
take nothing away.
That makes sense because I'm thinking about the couches, I came from Singapore and over here, it's this pursuit of
Right.
uh, just just stuff and
Yes.
even as I was working on my morning pages this morning, I was present to I was like, even in the wellness business, the wellness industry here, people market it as a something that is like a spa-like experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we know that wellness, I mean, you and I, it could be a walk. I'm looking at the beautiful azaleas right now, staring at me, you know, outside my window. And if I was to step up, I look at the oak tree. I have my desk positioned this way. It used to be my studio, my office was different, but I positioned because I want to watch this oak tree.
Yeah.
I I came to that realization just last year. I've been in this house for a while, over a decade, and I never caught a glimpse of this oak tree until one day I realized I want to marvel at this oak tree through the
Mm,
seasons. When the leaves fall,
mm,
when it's bare in the winter, and now spring, the leaves is green, and the summer, it will be a dark green.
yeah. Yeah.
And to observe this beautiful tree that I've known for a long time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and see it through the seasons. And when I look at it, it gives me so much joy
Absolutely.
because this tree has journeyed with me and I've journeyed with this tree. And how
Absolutely.
not notice all these things. And when we do notice it, it gives us such simple joy on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
I love that. And you talk about the Swami. What I'm not going to let you get away with, you know, before we conclude the call, is about your dad.
Mm.
Tell me something about you took away from your dad. There's still, I know there's so many. I'm sure you write a book about it.
I have no idea. There was a time when I used to feel,
It is something that is like, tell me something about your dad. Like, what did he imprint on you?
hmm, if there was one thing that I've taken away, there's so much, of course, as a person that, and he was, I talk about my dad as my guru because he was a perfect example of how to pursue spiritual life and go through its challenges and struggles and be a human in it. But he threw himself completely into it. That's what I can, so let me put it more clearly that not to hold back from life, not to hold back in any fashion from what you're committing to. So if one is committing to love or devotion or spirituality as love, then I mean, every time that he would talk about his master, he would be in tears. Every single time, which could happen 3 times a day or 5 times a day, every time. So and this guy was not an easy person to bring to tears, as I described you.
I imagine that. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the strength and then the vulnerability, like you said, you know.
Yes, and complete integrity, complete commitment to what he held as of is important. He, so you don't hold your own energy from what you are committing to. And that's where success at any venture comes from. It's about putting all eggs. And we don't hold money back. We don't hold time back. We don't hold our effort back. What we do hold back from our commitment is ourselves. It's like putting one foot in the boat and one still in the safe zone. He threw himself completely in what he believed mattered. And by example, and he wouldn't, this is not something that he would talk about. It's just that the way that he lived with conviction, you know. So, and he was pure heart. Ultimately, he was pure heart, and I don't see any difference between now, courage. Courage is a matter of the heart. It's not a matter of the head. Conviction comes from here. It doesn't come from here. You can't think yourself to clarity. I've now thought about everything. Now I'm absolutely clear. It never comes to that. I am clear is the declaration that begins to create a new clarity for you. I am now absolutely clear. He was that kind of a being.
So Amit, I know because we have children, we both have children. I know there was a time in your life when
Hmm.
that wasn't seen in this kind of noble way.
Hmm.
Were times in which, in your phase in your life, especially when you're a young man, foolish young man,
Hmm.
you think that is just that is just not enough. Tell me more about that phase in your life. Like, how did you, what made you resist? What was it that you resist what he had to offer? And then was it age that made you, or was it being a parent that made you mellow and realize that, man, this is an amazing human right in front of me?
Yeah.
So
Oh, it was,
think
my,
the part where you struggled and then the part where you transform in
hmm,
awareness.
no, we- he wasn't a typical father in some ways, let me say it like more clearly. Um, he, I, he never gave me a message to follow by instruction. It never came as, okay, must never, or you should always, none of that. I saw him struggle with in his life, and he went through his phases of extreme challenge, where he was emotionally hurt by relatives, and uh, and his career, when he was transitioning from and retiring and disappointed with how his company, or he was working for the government, so how he, as a teacher, and and his own struggles with his life, and I could see how human he was during that phase, and he wasn't offering me anything that, okay, this is how you can be powerful. He wasn't doing any of that. It was with his transformation that inspired me. So I had very little to resist as far as he was concerned, because he was never thrusting anything my way. Okay, you got to take this. This is exactly what is important. He was just so much in love with it that I found it inspiring, and not all our siblings took to it as passionately as perhaps I did. They like to say that as well. So I resisted very. I We had a lot of debates with each other, a lot of discussions and debates with each other, but he wasn't selling me anything. No idea. He was only talking about what he has come to find his home in. And gradually you find, okay, that makes sense for me as well, in my own way. Ultimately, no thought would satisfy us. No framework would be our home. We'll have to find our home in the heart where there are no thoughts.
You're a great teacher.
Thank you so much for making this happen. It's been such a joy making this connection, and I would love to continue meeting with you, Angelo. This is such a conversation which brought great joy to me as well.